You're not inconvenient, you're a leader. So let's redefine that. There's anyone who's listening who feels like she is the one in the family. I want every woman to hear there's nothing wrong with you whatsoever. You were not meant to fit in with the status quo. You were born to lead. That's why it feels like a lot, because it is a lot. Leadership in our families, breaking legacy and generation, and all of the disruptive patterns, it is a lot. It's a big responsibility. So give yourself a lot of grace and compassion.
Hey, everybody. We've had some of the most incredible guests coming to you these past couple of months. The amount of expertise and knowledge on these cutting edge topics is something we really hope that you enjoy. And if you do, it would make a huge difference to us if you could rate, review, and subscribe the podcast. It helps us to get more guests, better experts, and talk about all of the things that are really important to you. So give us a love, give us a lot of love, and don't forget to subscribe so you get all our new episodes.
I am thrilled and honored for you guys to be able to listen to today's podcast with such an important guest that every woman should listen to. I was able to have a beautiful conversation with Dr. Amanda Hanson, known as the Midlife Muse. She's a doctor of psychology, speaker, and author renowned for her transformative work in redefining womanhood. Her teachings have reached millions of women across the world and have sparked a global movement of women living a truer, more beautiful life. That's what we're here to do. Throughout her 25-year career as a psychologist, Dr. Amanda's works has exposed the patriarchal structures that keep women small, quiet, and at war with their bodies. Her approach combines clinical psychology with proven ancient holistic methods and sees the female body and mind as a harmonious system. Both must be in balance for wellness. Alongside her work, Dr. Amanda is a mother of four, a wife, and an activist who stands for inclusion, diversity, and equity. She chose a natural aging journey because she believes that aging is a spiritual experience when approached with a profound sense of self-worth. She lives this stuff. I am excited to cover a range of topics today, but hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey, and I am absolutely thrilled to offer our guest today. She is someone that I personally follow, has been so influential in my self-development and, the voice that I've been able to develop in talking to you guys every week. So I am really excited to have Dr. Amanda Hanson on today and share her amazing wisdom with you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelsey. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Oh my God, you do such incredible work, and you've been able to put language to so much of what I think we as women feel throughout our lives on a daily basis, and some throughout our entire lives, and come to the end of it, like I've been feeling like suffocated my whole life, and you've really been able to put some language to it. So I kind of wanted to just start off by backtracking a little bit and trying to figure out, like, how have you come here? Like, what led you here? Like, you've become amazing. Like, can you tell me a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I think that's a really fabulous question. I have memories of being around 8 or 9 years old and being kind of pushed out of the room at the holiday events because I was very curious and I was asking questions that I think were maybe disrupting the status quo for the adults and very minor questions at the time, but observations I made about certain things and the way I saw certain people treating one another. And really and truly coming from a place of purity, I think it disrupted what they did or did not want to focus on. So I was often asked to go play with the kids, go to the other room. So very early, I remember having a curious spirit, and I remember stories being told about myself as a kid. And it, in many ways, was almost an irritant, if you will. And so I think I grew up with this belief that my curiosity was disruptive. And later in life, I went on. I mean, I became a clinical psychologist. I declared at 13 I would be a psychologist, and I never stopped. I went straight on to graduate school and have been in the industry ever since. And I think it's pretty fascinating that I went on to make a full career out of being curious about humanity and helping people be curious about their own patterns and themselves, and being curious about a culture that really wants to erase women. So there have been elements of anger and rage in my work that have been part of it. And there are parts of really deeply wanting to understand what we can do as women to create something more beautiful in our time here on earth. So it's the curiosity element that I think I came to this earth with. And I believe at this juncture where I stand, I'm about to turn 53. I now understand and have understood for the past 2 years that this is well beyond me. This is a divine appointment that I have been asked to share as I am in this human body for this short period of time. So that's what I'm doing. This is way bigger than me.
It certainly is, but it's incredible work you're doing, and it's very interesting that you're like, "I wasn't raised in a household who told me to be particularly curious about this." Like, this was kind of a weird thing that, like, was, part of me, and that was almost kind of, like, shunned or kind of like, not so much, like, you're making people uncomfortable." Like, part of you.
I always made I made, for a very brief stint, I think it was about 4 years, I was in a Catholic school, and I think I was sent to the office more than not because I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm confused. So Jesus was God's son, but they're the same person? I don't understand." And go to the office. I was
Yeah.
constantly getting in
I have
trouble.
questions.
This is not adding up for me. And then as a new mom, I remember literally being kicked out of pediatric practices because I was asking questions that
Mm,
did not align with my philosophy for healing. And so there was definitely, and I've had a very radical way of living ever since for pretty much my whole life that has been kind of an outsider. I've been questioning systems from a place of curiosity and always truthfully seeking more truth.
yeah.
And I think because I push back against a lot of systems and want to know more, it is considered a nuisance at times. And so I'm like, that's fine. How about I'll just build an entire platform where I
Yeah.
speak about these things and let women decide for themselves if they want to step into this work further or not. And wow, what a journey it has been.
And what an important one it has been. So you did kind of touch on with that we live in a culture, we live in a society that almost wants to erase women. In what ways do you think that it wants to erase women?
I think it wants to erase the parts of us that are deemed inconvenient. So I
Mm,
think it wants to use us for certain functions. So producing children, taking care of others, being the support character to other people's main character movies that they're living. So as long as we abide by those rules, we're good. And as long as we don't have too much of an opinion, too strong of an opinion, too much of a drive, too much of a sexual appetite, as long as we stay within a really tight confine that has been written by the patriarchal standards, then I don't think we would be erased. We're like, oh, great, they're serving the function they came for. But I think my generation is one of the first to say, we want something different than what our grandmothers and mothers said was okay, or not even said was okay, but almost had no voice or choice around any of it. And so I think that the erasure is the erasure of the power. It's the erasure of the intuition. I mean, if you think about it, the average girl is already raised to gaslight herself because that doubt is built in from a very young age. Well, are you sure? How do you know? Or, well, I didn't see that happen. Where are the facts? And then we see it when women take the stand against their abusers. We ask her questions that are just ludicrous to ask. So we have erased, I think, the most powerful superhighway to a woman's power, and that is her intuition. So if we can get her to doubt herself enough, question herself, her body as well, and feel like she's in constant self terrorism, she can't be very powerful in this lifetime. So we'll just have her constantly swimming in self doubt and then disconnect. And in self doubt, you're disconnected from your intuition and your womb wisdom. And when you're disconnected from that, you are easy to manipulate. You're easy to throw fear campaigns at and keep her just buying for life, buying to find her worth because she's searching in all the wrong places. So that's how we erase women. We erase them out of their power and out of their wisdom and their intuition.
you said that so beautifully, but it resonates with me on such and on so many levels because I think throughout our lives we hit different milestones where this is particularly important for us. So, you talk about like young girls and how we start questioning them just from a very basic standpoint of like,
Yeah.
are you sure about that? You should question, now you should focus on your body. And then like we continue to do it to women throughout their lives as they step more and more into their power. I know as a new mom, this was like one thing I was not prepared for, but like also I've been preparing my whole life because I've been questioned. But the whole it throws you off because you're like, now I have to care for this, tiny human, and I'm being told that my intuition is incorrect. My
Yes.
intuition to, how I want to rock him to bed, how I want to sleep, how I want to do anything. Like we're not doing sleep training, and that's like, well, that's wrong. They're never gonna learn how to sleep. And I'm like, you know what? In me, my internal self is saying, hearing my baby cry and not being allowed to go in is not working for me. So
Correct,
thanks, but no thanks.
and there's a
Like,
reason it's not working for you, right? Because that very primal wisdom inside of you is there to soothe them. And that is a developmental stage. And we already know there's evidence of what is happening in the brain when the baby feels comforted and that they can rely and depend on the mom and the trust that gets built. So you're not just going to a crying baby, soothing them. You are building a fundamental lifetime of learning how to trust. And eventually the baby will get to a place of learning self-soothing mechanisms, and the process evolves. And none of my kids didn't go to college because they had to sleep in my bed forever, or
yeah.
that I
I was
gave
like,
them
he's
too
not
much
gonna be here
attention.
forever. Like
I,
like,
right now I'm
eventually
like,
he'll
hi,
get out.
yeah, I'm like, you might want to text me back. Hi, I'm your mom. Remember me? I'm like, "Nah, they're all out living their lives. So I'm living proof that that does not happen.
But it's crazy, it's the gaslighting, and then you're like, "Okay, well, I'm new here, right? I'm new at this stage in your life," and you
I
kinda
must be
go like,
doing it
"I
wrong.
must be doing it wrong," and then you just kinda, like, check in with yourself, and you're like, "Okay, but if doing it that other way actually feels wrong for me, that's what's wrong." Like
Oh, that's right. I'm so happy that you have that ability to pause and check in with yourself and say, I'm not seeking the answer outside because I know the wisdom of how I need to raise my babies lives in here. And if ever I need a question answered, I know I'll go to the places and the experts, but most of it we already have the answer to.
We just have to learn to listen, and that's kind of what I wanna, like, dive into and get some actionable tips for a lot of women listening today of, like, how can we start to listen? Where I wanted to start with that was some emotional hygiene for women that you have talked about. Can you unpack what that means and how it changes the way that we show up?
Yeah. So when I think about emotional hygiene, let me give you an analogy. We would not wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what? I actually don't think I'm going to brush my teeth that regularly anymore. I'm just going to do it once in a while, maybe. And you would not then expect that your teeth would be white. You would not expect that there wouldn't be plaque or tartar. You would also probably come to understand that not brushing your teeth every day and swallowing all of that bacteria would affect your gut, which then in turn would affect your entire immune system. So we understand that logic very simply. We wake up, we brush and floss our teeth, scrape our tongue, whatever, some people have more in-depth systems than others, but more or less the average human brushes their teeth at least once, hopefully, if not twice or three times a day. What happens, and because of the buildup that happens, emotionally, we are moving throughout our lives and we are having so many interactions that sometimes are breaking our heart, that sometimes are outraging to us. We lose people. There's profound grief. We have misunderstandings. There's ruptures in relationships, and we hurt people's feelings and they hurt ours. The world is chaotic. There's so much happening. And if we think that we can go through an entire human life and never take a moment to clean or process all of that buildup in our emotional bodies, then we're really misled in understanding our bodies, because what happens is all of that is getting stuffed down, and we use coping mechanisms like eating, drinking, pornography, gossip, shopping, scrolling, endless television, right? We do all of these numbing mechanisms, and we call it like, oh, I'm just escaping, I just need to reset. But in reality, what are we actually escaping from? We're escaping from our humanity because we have all of this residual built up inside of us and very little tools to help us in daily life. So I teach, which is beyond the scope of this podcast, but I teach very provocative and in-depth emotional hygienic practices so that the average woman can and I have all of my clients turn and teach this to their children. They talk to their spouses about it. How do we become emotionally hygienic women so that I never want to move in my life and contaminate women in my business who work for me? Not my husband, not my adult children, not my mother, not my best friend. I don't want to contaminate them with all of my bacteria, for lack of a better word, and build up emotionally. So it's my job to do that inner work and turn that fossil fuel that's building up, turn that fossil fuel into renewable energy so that it's actually a beautiful service to the world. That is my responsibility. So we're not responsible necessarily in all cases of what's happened to us, especially in childhood, but we certainly are responsible for like, what do I do with it now? Do I just keep stuffing it? And then it becomes this roaring fire that just comes ablaze and destroys everything in its path? Or do I say, no, I'm actually the woman who knows how to handle this and does so accordingly?
You know what's really interesting about what you said is that some of the feedback or criticism that I hear when we're talking about women becoming whole and taking your power and really owning your life is that the selfishness. And the description that you just gave is an ultimate service.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like the immediate, like, admittedly taken the stance of like, well, if it's selfish, that's fine because this is my one life. You know what I mean? But you really have come to, another, how I just took that as another side of like, this is the ultimate service to
Mhm.
not only myself, my partner, the women around me, the people around me, my daughter, to not infect it, to not bring all that baggage to them. And that's the opposite of being selfish. Like,
Thank you. Thank you for your ability to understand that and unpack it. You are exactly right. I think it's a service to those that I love. As is another thing that gets really misunderstood from women is I am a very, very direct communicator. And in being so, without a lot of experience for others on the receiving end of it, they initially might take my direct communication for being a bitch or for not being soft or sensitive enough. But I deeply feel, and when people are in my life long enough, it's the thing they end up loving the most because they're like, wow, Amanda, I never wonder where I stand with you. You are like this really direct, compassionately direct communicator because I feel I have so much respect for the people in my life. Why would I say something didn't bother me if in fact it did? Why wouldn't I seek resolution and remedy as opposed to live with resentment and sweep it under the rug? That always comes back to haunt. And so I like squeaky clean relationships, squeaky clean energy. I go to bed with the clearest conscious of like everything that needed to be said was said. Again, I think it's a service to the people I love. And my husband's reported like it doesn't ever feel burdensome being in a relationship with you. I'm never wondering like, oh, what's she really thinking? Because I share openly, like, this is not working for me. I have some ideas of what we can do to solve for this, but this current situation is not, it's really hurting my heart. And so I think when we learn to be the most direct communicators, it is also a form of service to the people that we love and that love us.
that's such a beautiful way to put it because we've almost been conditioned, and maybe more about this, is almost conditioned that that direct communication is like an attack or an assault and on the person that you're trying to communicate with. And when when you're speaking your truth, you don't mean it as it's not an assault. I'm telling you
Right.
exactly how I feel, and, I'm trusting that we can work through it together and that you can hold those words and you can hold that space for me to share how I'm feeling about this, and that might have, like, a range of emotions in there. Like,
Right.
it might be, that I'm feeling angry or upset about this, or I might be feeling, disrespected in some way, or, like, any of those things, but if we truly can hold that space for each other, then that becomes like I think everyone is with me when they say, like, "You go to bed at night just feeling like such a clean conscience." Like, please tell me
Right.
how.
Right.
Because, like,
Well, and
I
that's
like,
how
I'll choke on my words, like, and it wakes me up. I'm, like, repeating it. I, like, get up and I write it down. I'm like, "We'll talk about this tomorrow."
Well, I think with each passing decade, it gets easier, I will say that. But I also think, when we go to somebody and I remember my era of the blame game, right? Or feeling like the victim of a circumstance or something that happened in a relationship. I remember that era. This is something I've really grown into in the last 20 years, right? I'm going to be 53 in a couple of weeks. So it's not like I woke up this way. I've worked on it. I've architected her and I've built that inner queen. And anyone listening, she is absolutely capable. Like we all have our different eras and phases. But I think for me, it was holding in mind the long term goal that I had for these relationships. So going into a conversation, the old version of me would have been like, well, I'm so pissed because you did this and you that, and I'm sick of it, and something's going to have to change. And then I'd like slam the door and walk out. Well, that never actually got to any resolution that felt good for anyone. The version of me the past 20 years has been the woman, and still there was a journey to get here, but the version of me has now been able to communicate that says, I love you and I care about this relationship so much. And I also love myself. And I've got to tell you that that dynamic that just happened 10 minutes ago, I'm not available for that anymore. I know I did that for the first 20 years together. But this version of me, it just doesn't land anymore. So I would really like for us together to think of some solutions, how we could solve for that in the future. And I've got some ideas. And I'd love to share them and I'd love to hear from you and we can collaborate on how we think we could do that differently. But I need to be really, really clear. I won't be available for that kind of behavior ever again.
What a great way for a lot of people who have built these habits within the relationships in their life to step back and figure out, how do I communicate with I'm trying to make these changes. I can see that they're not serving me anymore. I'm trying to make these changes, but how can I communicate that with my partner? Because they're also, and we have to leave space for this, because like they're also used to one form of dialogue. They're also used to one form of you essentially that reacts to something, and they have to make adjustments too. Like we
Yes.
sometimes, like when we're working on this, like, when we're healing ourselves or we're working, like we're going to change this behavior, and we're like, everyone should snap into accepting the new me. And if you don't, you're out of here. And it's like, well, like, let's leave some space for people to make adjustments, for us
Yes.
to work on our communication back and forth. Me and my partner postpartum have had to work on this in a way of like, um, just in the language that we use to make a suggestion of what might be working for my son. It's not that what you're doing is not working. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's not that it's not on you. It's that we're a team together, and that if I'm sharing something that I find is helpful, it doesn't mean that you are wrong. It means I'm just coming from a place of love, and I want to help you. I can see you're struggling with him. Like
Yeah.
I want to come at this from like a team. And so, like, for us, like, we constantly remind each other, like, hey, like, we're coming at this from, like, I'm your teammate, I'm your number one fan. If I'm going to share something with you, I hope it's only helpful and it comes from a place of love.
Yes, and always assuming best intent in those shares, right? Like you're really sharing something that's worked for you that may or may not work for them, but you're doing it because your intention is you really want to provide relief or support or ease in that moment. Yeah. And I think, what is really helpful, like for me, we joke, we've been married almost 30 years, and my husband says he feels like he's had like 15 different wives, which I could say is probably quite
Which is
true.
great.
Right, I like to keep you on your toes, baby. But I also think, the evolution is immense, and I said to him, "So, when a tree gets planted and you go outside and you look at the tree from 1 year to 2 years, does it look the same? And if it does, there's probably a conversation to have. It's probably not in the right soil, it's probably not getting the right sunlight, it's probably gonna wither and die and eventually." And the tree is in constant evolution. And we don't judge the tree because it's constantly changing and bending towards light and doing what it needs to do to expand. And the trunk gets wider and it grows and it extends its branches out in a way that it hadn't when it was still, smaller. And so as I grow in myself, like love, I expand in my capacity to show up in this world. And so the versions of me are changing sometimes by the year, sometimes every couple of years. And there was a version of me that you married that was very connected to patriarchal princess energy, who married you on the fairy tale. And I've now evolved and grown into this matriarchal queen. And so, yes, in fact, everything has changed. So you're not wrong to feel that a lot has changed. It has. Almost my entire essence has changed. So, and he gets to make a choice whether or not he wants to be with this ever evolving and changing human. And for some, it would be way too much. And for him, he is thrilled to be a part of the journey. But I think when we help people understand in the same way we would never expect the ocean to be the same every day, anything in nature to be the same, we are part of nature. Why would we think that we would be stagnant and the same? I hope I'm way different than the
I don't
version.
wanna be stagnant. But we're, in the patriarchal world, we're taught and encouraged to hold on to that stagnant version of ourselves, like, and that comes from so many different aspects of the way that we look, the way that we act, and almost in a way of just like, you write about in your book about stop abandoning yourselves. And I just wanted to kind of like lean into that a little bit because I want to know kind of the subtle ways over those years that we do abandon ourselves without even realizing it.
Absolutely. So one subtle way, and I don't know if it's all that subtle, is when okay, for an example would be when we have our periods. And we try to stuff ourselves into uncomfortable clothing to go to an event rather than honor where our body is. It's bloated, it's bleeding, it's going through a whole process, right? So the amount of times early on when I abandoned my body and I almost tortured it to fit in that dress for that Christmas party. And I thought, I'm like, so much apology needs to be extended to what I've done to my body, right? And it's like, the ways that we abandon our voice or our truth at an event or a dinner party, and we want to really say something or share it, and we abandon and silence ourselves because we want to be liked by the strangers in the room, right? So it's death by a thousand paper cuts. It's little bit by little bit by little bit, and eventually you do that enough, you're invisible to yourself. You've betrayed yourself so long, so often, in so many aspects of your life. You don't even know what you like to eat anymore. You don't even know what you think is funny. You don't know where you want to travel. You don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life because you've erased yourself bit by bit by bit. And you've paid attention to mass marketing campaigns that always need you to be dependent on fear so that they can keep selling to you. And you become this person who's like, well, I guess I'll just do that. I'll buy that next thing. And you become, I think, a shell of yourself. When you abandon yourself long enough, you don't even know. And a lot of those women end up on my doorstep,
Yeah.
40, 50 years in, and they're like, I don't know who I am.
Mhm.
Right. And then we look back over the journey. It's like, well, that would make sense. You've spent the past 25 years abandoning yourself. So let's architect her and find her again.
Yeah, and such an effort to make others more comfortable too, because I mean, that resonates so much with me because sometimes I'm like, something happens in a room where you just like, and you're pleasing strangers, and then you leave and you go like, no, like, that wasn't the
Yeah.
way that you should have said something. And then I just like, replay it over and it's like, Kelsey, why do you always have to be so difficult? Why do you always have to be the person who says something? And it's like, well, that's my truth. So
Yes. Yeah, and all exactly, and also it's like, is it I think we need to reframe it, right? Like, is it actually difficult, or is it just the most beautiful truth in the room that you were brave enough and willing to showcase and speak up? I've said many things in many rooms, with some of the top executives in the world, and it has not been easy or comfortable, but I will not stand there and allow some of the shit that comes out of people's mouths to be liked. To be liked by who? Those people? No.
yeah,
I have such a sense of integrity around certain issues in humanity, especially when it comes to anyone other than the white man.
yeah,
Any jokes about anyone who's not a white man, I have no patience and tolerance for it. And I think it's so beautiful to just make direct eye contact with the person and very straight face. You look at them and say, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I don't
yeah,
understand. And that's exactly what I've done. And I just look at them because it's a moment like you had the audacity to make that comment in front of everybody, and everyone else felt so uncomfortable and laughed. I asked them to repeat it because I want to hold the tension of that moment to be like, until we start speaking up, those people get to keep coming into rooms and saying ignorant and crass things. And it just gets louder and louder until those of us come around and say, oh, not here. No, thank you.
Yeah. And what that's such a beautiful and direct way because it's almost you're just asking, you're point pointedly asking for clarity. And it's almost like holding up a mirror to exactly what you said. Are you proud of what you said? 'Cause
Right,
like, I wanna hear it again if you're proud of what you said. You know what I mean? Like, it just
right.
kind of like just, if that makes you and everyone else uncomfortable, there's a reason for that. Hey, you.
Thanks for getting in touch with the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast.
We love your questions and adore hearing from you.
Leave us a hello,
A burning question,
feedback.
or anything else you wanna share with us on the podcast.
We will play your message live on air if we can.
Thanks for being an amazing friend. Stay safe and moving. And I did want to we hit on body image a little bit, but I wanna dive into that a little bit more. So, we see the connection or can you explain more of the connection between body image and self-worth and how we can stop treating our bodies like constant projects that need to be fixed? And I love that you said, like, "I need an apology to my body," because I know so many women feel that. Um, and if you don't and you haven't gotten there yet and you're still just in that loathing I wanna speak to you too, but, like, oh my gosh, our bodies are so incredible. Like,
The
they
most, the most, but you can't sell I'll answer that question, but before that, I just wanna say you can't sell much to a woman who knows that her body's incredible.
Yeah.
You can sell a hell of a lot to a woman who thinks she's broken and that her body just needs, a better arched eyebrow or a longer, hair extension or a thinner waist or thinner this. You can
How can
sell
we snatch and
endless.
contort everything? It's like, "What? You are incredible, like, your body's incredible."
Right, and imagine how much life force energy, gets drained from that woman while she's chasing that train that she'll never be able to get off of, because once you get on, it starts to have this dysmorphia about it where nothing ever actually you never arrive. I've not yet met a woman first of all, I've never in my life worked with a woman. I've been doing this for 27 years. I've never met a woman in my life who hasn't had a period of hating her body. I think it is devastating. I walked the streets of New York City, several months ago and did a survey on this, and every single woman remembers exactly where she was, how old she was, and who said the first negative comment about her body. It was usually before the age of 10, and it was almost exclusively from a family member. I asked men the same question. They had no recollection. Either they were lying or it was so insignificant that they just like released it and didn't hold on to it. And we as women, we are built and made for connection. So the moment we feel like we're not pleasing someone or they're not happy with us, then we rush to try to remedy it to be liked. So it is a lifelong struggle and battle for the average woman until she really deepens into, first and foremost, understanding there's no chase of worth. I want every single woman who is listening to this to understand you were born worthy. You don't look at a newborn baby as you would not look at your own newborn self and hold yourself. You would not say, "Well, now, my love, we're just going to teach you all the ways to earn your worth." You are born inherently worthy. So worth is not a competition. There's no chase for it. You already have it. So we can all exhale and just know you are worthy simply because you are. There is no medal at the end of anybody who dies more worthy with more perfectly contoured body. So I think the work is really about I have been able to opt out of that whole system. Like, I don't color my hair. I got my implants removed. I don't do Botox or fillers. I'm letting myself naturally age in every single aspect. And I just decided to opt out because I was really able to see the toxic campaign for what it was. And I thought, I only have so many hours in a day. I only have so
Yeah.
much money in the bank. I'm going to use it differently.
Mm,
I'm going to use my hours and my time and my abundance of all of that I'm dreaming of for this lifetime very differently. It's not gonna be at endless appointments that are telling me that if I just do this a little longer or tighter, it'll be better. I'm done. I'm just done. I never really got into it. The implants was the only thing I've ever done. I never even got my eyebrows plucked. I just think it's fascinating that that one for me, I felt like like this skinny little rail, and I was teased as a young kid for being they used to call me Jonesy Bonesy, and I really carried this feeling of like, I'm not feminine. I don't feel like a woman, and so unfortunately, I fell into that trap and I did that, and I had massive, massive regret very soon after. Like, what did I do? And again, I felt like I abandoned myself. I felt like I betrayed myself. And when I had those implants removed almost 2 years ago, we were driving home. We had it done at a nearby place where I live. We were driving home and I could not stop crying. Even in the recovery room, I was just, my husband reports you were crying, crying. They were wanting to see like if you were in some kind of pain. The whole drive home and the whole first night into the next morning, I could not stop weeping. And I was able to communicate with my husband. I'm weeping for every version of me that
Mm.
ever thought I had to go under a knife to be more of a woman. I'm weeping for every woman who ever does think that she has to do something to be more loved or to be valuable. Like I just felt profound ancestral grief that really, really was active, very active for the weeks after that surgery.
Wow, it's incredible that you could reflect on that in such an immediate way because sometimes we'll just start the train of lies to ourselves.
Mm,
Because
mm,
like the most important person that we tell lies to is really ourselves. And we start the line of like justification, almost why we have to
mm.
participate and why it was maybe a good decision, even though like your true, maybe, like, inner voice like, knew and was trying to tell you, and you just were like, I'm gonna keep lying back." And I think that so this is a health and fitness podcast, and I speak to a lot of women who, they write in or they're in my Facebook group, and they say, like, "Well, when I get to my goal weight," and I cannot say enough
Mm.
that the confidence, the self-worth, the the feeling that you think is going to come when you get to that spot, like, when you get the implants or when you get that idea that you've decided, that's where my self-worth lies or that's where my confidence lies, it's not gonna be there. And I just feel like we could save a lot of time and suffering and, if we could all just actually realize that because we look out, we do our lens, like, we look out, she must have it," and, you said you walk the streets and it's every woman is like,
Yeah.
this is when it started, I have this profound memory of this, and it doesn't come at a size. It doesn't come
Mm.
at a goal weight, and I
No.
don't know, we have to like, we gotta step out of the race.
Yes, that is exactly it, Kelsey. You are exactly right. I just decided at 40 when I made the proclamation, like I'm going to age naturally, and everyone was whispering around me what they were going to do. I just, I projected 20 years out, and I thought, I'm not doing this. I'm not spending the next beautiful 20 years of my life chasing some constant moving target. The simple fact that women's bodies trend is very problematic.
Yeah.
Very problematic. Big boobs are in, big boobs are out. Thick eyelashes, no eyelashes. The long hair, short hair. I mean, the fact that I'm all for like a fun
Big butt,
color
no
of the
butt.
year.
Like,
Yeah, I'm fine. I love a good color of the year. Like, we're doing a deep burgundy for the fall. Fantastic. But when
yeah.
we are talking about women's bodies, I think we are in some really, really dangerous territory.
Yeah, I
And
completely agree with you, and we're never gonna be in trend. It's honestly like, I
and I don't want to be. Isn't that the
I
cool
don't
part? Like,
wanna be.
I don't wanna be I'm so much deeper and more and so much richer and a trend. A trend is a blip on a radar that's barely remembered. I don't wanna be a trend. I wanna be a legacy. I wanna be this ancient, rooted, remembered artifact. I don't wanna be a trend. Trends are disposable. They're cheap. They come and go. They go as fast as they come in. I no, that is not what I wanna be attached to for my life. I don't wanna be this, like, weeble wobble of, like, "Okay, what am I supposed to do now?" And based on
Yeah.
who? Based on a bunch of men sitting around at a board table, like, "Okay, how can we instill fear this month? Ooh, okay, well, they're everyone's got the thick eyebrows now? Okay, let's tell them thick eyebrows make you look like, to this or to that." Everybody will start to go for these new procedures. They just have to make shit up that we have to chase. It's a moving
Oh
target
god.
forever.
You're so right. You are so right. I want to also okay, we talked about queen energy a little bit, but I really wanna dive into this concept a little bit more because I think that, our listeners like, "What is that, and how do I get that?" And, like, is there, a checklist I have? So, how would you describe it to someone who has spent years as a people pleaser or in like that good girl mode?
Yeah, so that's, I think that that's the princess energy, right? Like we all come into the world bred on the fairy tale, on the cheap rom-coms where she has like two lines in the whole movie and she's settling for a breadcrumb of a relationship and calling it a feast. So we teach women like just be thankful and happy and grateful that someone's standing next to you, even if it's not the ideal. Well, at least he doesn't beat you, or all the things. So we
The
we
things
raise
we've
her.
come up with, these are the
The
bar the
standards are
the bar is in the
so low.
basement. Like
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So we raise her to just be grateful that maybe anyone even decided they wanted to be with her. It's a real low bar. And then from there, she is seeking. Princess energy is a woman who is constantly seeking. She's seeking validation. She's seeking approval. She's seeking to feel love. She's seeking to feel desired. And in queen energy, you start being that woman. So in my work, I teach women how to stop seeking and how to start becoming the thing that they're seeking. How do you become self love? How do you become self approving? How do you become self desired? How do you bring, so again, it's all about muse energy, queen energy, becoming the thing that you spent the first half of your life seeking from the outside world. Because I can tell you, I've been with my husband over 30 years. We've been married almost 30. He loves me profoundly. But the love I have for myself is the most profound. It doesn't even scratch the surface because there's no one who knows me better than me. There's no one who knows what I desire, what I crave and what I think and the depth and the emotionality of me. So I stopped a long time ago seeking approval from any of my relationships. People can choose to be in relationship with me and we can co-create spaces and that's amazing. But I am not expecting or depending on others to love me to prove that I exist. Right? Like
Mm.
I exist first and foremost because I do and for me. So it is a really internal process and energy that happens. So when you teach a woman how to build a life on the everything that she's looked out into the world desiring, you teach her how to go internally and build that from within. You then self-architect a woman who is absolutely unfuckable with, and also a woman who attracts king energy. She attracts that kind of alignment. She stops attracting the prince, the little boy energy. She starts attracting unbelievable opportunities, higher pay rates, just unbelievable orgasms. So when you start to source from that queen energy, everything in your life magnetizes to that frequency. And anything that would be a mismatch to that and the energy that you accepted before in your life is you're repelled by it or it's repelled by you. So I don't even attract low level clients. Like the clientele that I attract is next level women who are radically responsible for their lives. They're not sitting back being like, Dr. Manna, I need you to help me change my life. They're like, Dr. Manna, I am here because I want to change some things here. And they are in the work every day doing their part because what I teach is simply information. And information is absolutely useless if you don't learn how to embody it. I can teach you how to embody it, but when the computer closes, you're the one who's with yourself all the rest of the days of the week. You have to know how to embody the queen, which is what I teach. But I just attract very high level opportunities and humans all of the time because that's what I'm a magnetic frequency for. In my princess era, I attract all kinds of other things. I attract clients who couldn't pay, who said they were going to pay, and I'd have to chase. I attracted very different friendships. I attracted low level conversations in my marriage. It's just a completely different energetic. I attracted very different conversation with myself in front of the mirror when I was in princess energy versus what happens in front of the mirror now every morning. It is holy, the interaction I have in that mirror in front of those moments with myself.
That is so, there's a lot there that is just, like, so and incredible. One of the things that, like, stands out to me is, like, that is exactly what you attract, and I think, like, from a societal perspective and, trying to get women to stay in that princess energy, and that, like, anyone who's kind of, like, stepped into their queen energy, like, they're somehow this threat. They've become this, like, um trying to deem them as undesirable or, that's kind of like where we're at, and it's like Well, yeah, for you, because 'cause you're not a king.
Exactly. I think it's
Like,
perfect.
we're not after the same thing here. Like, if I feel like a threat to you, that seems like a you issue that maybe you need to unpack. And that's not just for men, because I think that we as women do that a lot of times to, other women who are kind of exhibiting um this queen energy, and they kind of can feel very threatening at
Yeah,
times.
it's the biggest it is. I had a moment yesterday where I literally felt a profound heartbreak for the women of the world because of some displays of things I've been seeing, and I thought, "I'm really deeply sad. I don't know how we're ever going to get ahead, to be totally honest with you, because the
Yeah.
level of infighting and jealousy, I understand why men are ruling the world, because you create these subsystems of women who attack and feel threatened. They give all the language to, like, sisterhood and all of the things, but when push comes to shove, they're elbowing each other out of the way. And
Yeah.
I know there's some profoundly deep wounds inside of that and survival instincts. And I do a lot of that sisterhood repair in the work that I do in cohorts of women. I think we have a very long way to go because the majority of I don't get a lot of negative comments in my world. I just don't even attract that kind of stuff. But when I've spoken on other stages, I spoke on the Mind Valley stage. The they've gone Mind Valley has gone and since cleaned up a lot of the messages, but some of the attacks, hundreds of them from women on my appearance, it was quite devastating
Mm,
to hear. It's like, wow, when you really distill it down, yes, sometimes it's the men, but wow, the women come for the women who love themselves. I had some reviews on my
yeah.
book that's like, wow, she really loves herself. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
exactly.
kind of
That's
the
the
point,
point.
right?
That was
Like,
the
that's
point. And
and I
every
do,
single
and I want
woman,
you to too.
yeah. And that's what I'm
Like,
trying to display in this book. I want it for every single woman. Why is loving ourselves? I have a daughter. Do you think I'm going to raise her to not love herself? The fact that me loving myself is problematic is the
yeah.
fundamental problem we have, and these were reviews written by other women.
Yeah. I'm struggling with that right now, and I want to there's so many of us that are cheering for each other, and there's so many of us that are going like, "Yes, girl, go." Like, there is so many of us, but I'm struggling with some of the language that are kind of more of those microaggressions where there are people in your life that she thinks she is all that. She think First of all, don't tell me what I think. I will share that.
You're like, "Oh, I don't think I know. I actually
Yeah.
know. I
Like,
know I'm great."
I know I'm great. So I don't know what this perception is. But this kind of like shaming language. And it definitely, like I will say in my experience, it's coming from, some of the older women in my life that are a little bit unfamiliar with this power.
That's
They're
right. You are exactly right, because instead of what they should be doing, right, is like, "Damn, girl, I wish I could have been as brave and as assured, self-assured as you are at your age. I wish I could have been," right? But it's almost like hell to the no. I suffered and I hated myself, or I played patriarchal by the patriarchal rules. You should too. How dare you get that free, right? It's almost like my
yeah.
mother-in-law saying to me, "How wow, must be nice. Your husband changes diapers. My husband never changed a diaper once after 4 kids." And I thought, but isn't that the point? Aren't we supposed to evolve? Every generation does one better. Isn't that a
Yes.
proof and sign that we
That's the
are?
point.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. And unfortunately, there will always be some who think, no, 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 no. I didn't get to have it. You don't get to have it. How dare you love yourself? And I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I experienced that quite a bit, especially. It's so fascinating, especially because I love aging so much. It's almost like people don't believe I love it. So they have to like double down or tear me down.
yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but admit it, you would look much better if your hair was all dark. Like, no, actually,
Mm.
I love this, but you can see it's their projection, right? So these women
Yes, you're
projecting
right.
onto you
Mhm.
the frustration that you get to be this self-actualized when they weren't able to step into it for themselves. And Yeah, it's really unfortunate rather than the celebration of, "Wow, look at her shine," and it gets to be evidence. I don't care what age a woman is, there's no such thing as it being too late. Let your light be evidence of what it gets to look like. Let that be what's contagious to you, and do that. Every time a woman shines, to me, it is proof that it gets to happen. I love watching women who are, like, ahead of me in the self-development industry, and I'm like, because to me, it's like, yes, queen, you are evidence that we get to keep breaking all the ceilings. You are evidence of what it gets to look like, how big it actually gets to be. So if we don't see women doing it, then there's not proof that it actually gets to be a reality. So I'm in favor. I'm like, the more women lighting up the sky, the
Oh
more
my god.
brightness there is.
It's so true, and I feel like, we just keep I keep just trying to, like, shine light on, like, that's why we have the podcast, here we are. And then, something I wanted to kind of ask you too was just I watched one of the videos, like, never, if you have a daughter, never say anything negative about her body, and I was like, "Yes, of course." I'm struggling with, and I think maybe what a lot of women are struggling with, number 1, she'll never witness me saying anything negative about my body throughout, my the whole pregnancy. I'll look at my belly. This is, "Oh my god, isn't that amazing that my body can
Yes.
do this? There's a baby in here." Like, now there's milk, like, there's so many incredible, magical, like, straight
Oh,
up, like, magical, powerful things that are going on right now, and we're kind of like, in this, we should hide that, not for me, but what I struggle with is, like, kind of like, how do we I'm almost in a place of, like, how do I protect her from that language of, like, other family members? Or, like, how can we start to correct or just kind of, like, figure out ways that we can, work on this language with other people in our lives that we really don't want to infect? Like, our kids, our girls, our we don't want that energy because 'cause we're, like, working so hard on healing ourselves to
yes.
hear something like, "Well, I'm not gonna wear it because I look fat in that," and you're like, "That's that's not the energy." Like,
Right. Exactly. And I think the best thing we can do is start having conversations like I did with my mom and my mother-in-law. I was with them, this was probably about a year ago now, but we were on a vacation. And at the end of the vacation, they were talking about how we were looking through some of the pictures from the 4 days we were all together. And they were talking about things like, oh my gosh, I gained so much weight in these 4 days. I ate so much. Oh my gosh, my hair looks so frizzy. And I was sitting at the table and I like slammed my hands down on the table and I said, stop, stop. Is this as good as it gets? You're in your 80s and you're in your mid 70s and we're still doing this? Like, you're supposed to be my role models. Who do I
yeah.
have to look at for a bigger conversation? We had the most beautiful, amazing 4 days. Why are we spending time focused on the appearance? Notice how the guys haven't talked about that at all. And so I'm the one who points out and contrasts that, right? Or I'm the one who says there are just bigger, more beautiful conversations to have. And we are raising the kids such that objectification around their bodies, it's a non-topic, it's a non-starter, it's a non-issue. It doesn't happen. So if we don't have something better to say, it's probably better we just sit and look and smile at one another, because my children's bodies and bodies in general are just not a topic of conversation. And one thing that I know we've done with extended family is we've been forever the house that has had the card decks of conversations and questions. So around the holidays, it's like we just I have helped bring in and usher a new way of conversation for all of our extended family that has to do with much more beautiful, expansive energy than small minded conversation that has anything to do with the way someone looks. Because truly, and the language I've said over and over and repeated at nauseum when anyone in my family starts bringing this stuff up is like, we're going to stop right there, because honestly, the way someone looks is the least interesting thing about them. That's just a bunch of genetics that came together and did what they did, unless they're having like other things. Um, we're not going to talk about how somebody looks. There's so many other beautiful things about that person. And so just don't even entertain it. Like, just shut it down as soon as it starts.
Thank you. I don't know, I'm like I have not been able to find a way around some of these topics, and you're like, "No, no, I have this figured out. Here's some actionable tips that you can have." Like, I love the cards idea, like, I think that a lot of the holidays are coming up, and I don't know if, I'm thinking a lot of people feel this way. Sometimes there's a lot of dread with coming together with your families, and I feel a immense amount of sadness for that because we don't these times don't last forever. We don't get to have these people in our lives forever, and if we're lucky enough to have them in our lives right now, I want to have meaningful conversations with them, and I
Yeah.
want to have such like, have a deep and beautiful time with them, and I almost feel like some type of anxiety going into it because you're like, "This time is wasted talking about these topics, and I don't know how to steer it in another direction, and am I that person all the time?" Like, you know what I mean? But
Oh,
is
yeah,
it
I am
worse
that
to be
person
like
all the time, but if you're coming to
yeah.
my house and I've cooked you a dinner, I am that person all the time, and I think it's
I
beautiful, it takes
love
everybody higher, right? So, I mean, you can even start with simple questions like, "Okay, we're gonna go around the table and everyone's gonna answer this. If you could be a famous singer or dancer or athlete, whatever, you pick your categories, which would you pick and why?" And then it's light and it's silly, and then we progress into things like, what is your greatest fear? And then sometimes, like, what is your greatest regret? If you could go back and change just one thing in your life, what would you change and why? You cannot believe tables of people that you've never seen cry before. Everybody builds, we build this unbelievable connection to each other's hearts. So then it's not steering into politics. It's not steering into like cheap conversation about whatever else. You get to, when people come to my home, you best believe that I am steering the way a lot of that energy is going. And you can choose to come or not, but we find that people really love that. People really love to be able to talk and share about themselves and hear what everyone else around the table thinks and feels about these topics. And you get to lead differently. When you are a leader and a legacy change maker, this is what it looks like and sounds like. It is an active participation in the conversations that are and are not allowed around your table and in your home.
Amanda, you're so incredible. Like that it's just the reframing of that because I think for a lot of women who have either felt this and never acted on it, it's just like, why am I so deeply inconvenient? Like,
You're not
you
inconvenient.
know,
You
like
you weren't
that's how
because Kelsey, you weren't born to fit in, you were born to lead. That's why. You're not inconvenient, you're a leader. So let's redefine that. There's anyone who's listening who feels like she is the one in the family. I want every woman to hear there's nothing wrong with you whatsoever. You were not meant to fit in with the status quo. You were born to lead. That's why it feels like a lot, because it is a lot. Leadership in our families, breaking legacy and generation, and all of the disruptive patterns, it is a lot. It's a big responsibility. So give yourself a lot of grace and compassion.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big responsibility and I know so many women, have listened to this and are like, I'm doing the work. I need some I need some actionable tips. I need some way, but honestly, listening to this podcast, you're already along your way. But you have described self-love as a skill and not a state. And I just feel like that's like a huge shift in thinking when we are, kind of like how are we doing this? What are some of like the muscles that we can train so that we can get there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One, opting out of anything on social media that makes you feel bad about yourself, right? And I've curated my social media so that 9 times out of 10 it feels delicious and amazing and expansive. It's more thought leadership kind of I stuff that I follow. Beautiful poetry, some fun animal stuff that is always good for my heart. But I don't follow accounts that are trying to sell me something, that are beauty focused. So, one, you get to curate your space. Also, pay attention to what you consume on television. Over 79% or 78% of the numbers changing every year, but of television and movies is written, produced, and directed by men. So even when you think you're sitting down to be entertained, you are still consuming through the lens of patriarchy. So being aware of that. So, we're aware of what we take in as food, but we have to be aware of what we take in as media. Does this feel self-soothing? Does this feel loving? Does this feel like the best way to spend my 1 hour this evening before I go to bed? Because that last thing that I watch or consume will be what is playing in my unconscious while I'm sleeping. And then I start my day every day before my phone gets turned on, before I brush my teeth, before I interact with any other human. I spend 2 to 3 minutes every morning in the mirror just with myself. This is not about, oh my gosh, you look really tired this morning, Amanda, or oh, wow, look at there's a whole new pattern of gray coming in. This is not about how I look. This is about seeing myself. And there's rarely a morning where I'm not moved to tears. I've been doing this for so long now at this point. It has become such a holy act of witnessing that this meat suit that I'm in is merely that. right? I see my soul. I am here for such a profound and big mission in this lifetime. And the love I have for myself has been built, because if we're waiting for it to come from a lover or the outside world, it's conditional and it's wobbly. But this is steady. I wake up with me every single day. I go to bed with me every single day. I'm the most reliable and dependable version for me. That self-love and that witnessing every single day over the years has built that ability to then turn into the world and take all that I take that comes at me, that is varying opinions, right, about me and my work. And so I'm able to do that because I ground and build the self-love from inside. I don't wait for flattery from others. I don't wait for approval from my colleagues or the people who work for me or my partner. It has to be built within. And when you start your morning with that mirror practice, my clients do it, and when they're on, like, day 90, they start to feel something really big shift inside of them, and I can't even explain, and it's beyond the context of this conversation. I cannot explain what so many of my clients around the world have decided after that 90-day mark, because there's a clarity that just happens. It's
Yeah.
it's just so holy and so profound, so you don't have to spend any money for that.
See, not trying to sell you anything, actually, just
Just you
muscles
in a
that you
mirror.
can work. You in a mirror. I can't. That's amazing.
Quick interruption, guys. We are always talking about the importance of community to help you along your journey, to keep you motivated, to surround you with like minded people. And we have a massive, massive community to do just that. If you haven't already, get in our fitness group on Facebook, Fitness Programming by CVG. Get on our app, CVG Nation. We've got hundreds of thousands of women on there who are just waiting to cheer you on. And we cannot wait to meet you. Get with us on our channels. We love to see you there.
I know that we're, coming close to time, but I have to hit on reclaiming midlife and womanhood, because that is it's so important for so many of the listeners, and I need them to hear it from you. So a lot of people are kind of they've put this like midlife as a crisis, and you've kind of reframed it into a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
And I love that you said people question if that is actually true. Like, do you actually love yourself? Or do you actually love your gray hair? And I just want to give a moment for you to explain
Mhm.
that. How do we reframe this into a spiritual awakening?
Well, I decided you can write any story you want. I decided to turn it into a spiritual journey because I remember I worked in nursing homes in college, and I remember being in awe of the architect of the faces of the women that I cared for and their hands. And I just thought it was like the most incredible tapestry. We only fear it when we start to listen to a narrative that wants to keep us young forever, which is also when we understand that a woman looking young forever, I believe, and I'm going to go out on quite an uncomfortable limb here, and I really am going to be speaking more openly about this. I believe there's threads to pedophilia. When we expect a woman to look prepubescent forever and not have a line or wrinkle on her face, let's call it
100%.
what it is.
Let's call it what it is.
There's
This is
something really
weird.
sick there. There's
It's like so many little things, like no body hair, no, it's all weird. Like
It's
like
real creepy, and it's
yeah.
time for us as women to start calling it. It's
Yeah.
really creepy, and so the clarity for me is like I was watching this generation of women become like ageless, and I felt sad. I'm like, what's happening? Where are all the beautiful faces of the women? Why does everyone kind of look the same now? Why don't we see aging women? And I remember having a conversation as well with my daughter recently, and she was in tears about it. And she's in her 20s, and she said, "Mom, I don't even know what 30-year-olds look like anymore." She's like, "I'm really sad about that. I don't feel like I even have role models 10 years ahead of me." So we're erasing these faces, and I think we don't even understand psychologically the damage that we are actually creating. Never mind all of the things that we're learning about when a face has so much Botox and can't map emotions with the person that they're having a conversation with, what it does to the relationships. And that's so sad for children. That's a whole nother conversation. But I personally don't believe that any of the changes my body has gone through are a mistake. As a matter of fact, Kelsey, you've got me on a really special day because today marks the 1 year moment that I have not bled for a year. So that means I am officially like menopause is officially like today, and tomorrow begins postmenopause. I have never felt so alive, so beautiful, so powerful, so abundant with finances, so sensual in my entire life because I decided to tell a different story. I decided that
Mm.
this bridge that I am walking, every symptom that I had, I don't pathologize symptoms. I've never taken HRT, and this is not a bash to anyone who does. My personal choice was not to. Anything that has a warning label on it is already a no for me. So I decided to take the few symptoms I had and I turned them in like hot flashes. I turned them into a spiritual moment. 3 hot flashes a night for 8 weeks, and I turned it into a spiritual moment, every single hot flash. What does that look like? I would wake up so sweat, overheated. I would stand in front of my fan. I would extend my arms back and I would throw my head back and I would just say to myself, let burn whatever cannot survive on the next version of who I'm becoming. So I got to choose. The hot flash could be pathologized. I've got to call a doctor. We've got to stop this. Or I can understand the brain chemistry and what is happening inside of my body as my estrogen is dropping and leaving. I understand what's happening. When you understand, that's power. That information is power. And I decided I'm going to commune with this and make beautiful art out of this year. And that's what I did.
I have never had, I've had a lot of women come on and talk about hormonal changes during perimenopause, postmenopause. I've had a lot of different doctors come on and like, what are some of the things that we can do? And I've never heard anyone describe um, this particular spot in our journey
Uh-huh.
as being so powerful as the way that you have just described it now. It has
Yeah.
always been this like fear, kind of fear mongering, something that we need to be afraid of. And even
Yeah.
when we talk to each other, um, you know, I, when I hear women talk to each other who are in this stage of their life, it it kind of it kind of generates that fear of like, well, you don't know. You just wait. This is horrible. And I'm like, okay. So then as young women who are not in that stage yet, we kind of have this like it's like this dark cloud that sits ahead and that we don't know about yet, but it's definitely coming for us and it's going to be horrible. And it just kind of like instills
I'm
this
here to tell
fear.
you that does not have to be the case. I take creator's consciousness very seriously. Like I get to be the creator of the consciousness that I live by and the story that I tell. I take that very seriously. And I've created the most beautiful movie out of my life. And every chapter and every piece of it gets to be whatever you decide. And some people will attach to the fear, and that's okay. Some people will attach to victim energy. That's okay. Everybody has their part and their character to play in all of this. But I will not silence my experience and how beautiful it's been, because another problem that we have in this sisterhood place is like every time I speak about my experience, someone says, well, don't shame other people who decide to color their hair. And I'm like, I want you to go back and listen to that video. Nowhere am I shaming. I simply shared my story of why I decided not to. So we have to stop doing this. And we have to understand that my experience doesn't negate anyone else's. This is my experience, and I am going to share it because I want nothing more than women to borrow that energy if they feel they need to. I want them to know that there is a new, really, really beautiful narrative that exists. And it might not be the loudest one, but I'm here to tell you I've lived it. I'm literally on the other side of it. And it was an incredible year, one of the most powerful years of my entire life.
I just love that for you. And thank you so much for sharing that with me. That resonates with me so much. I had a really powerful year. I had a baby this year, and I really enjoyed pregnancy. And it was like very much like a not other people are miserable, Kelsey. And I was like, well, I'm just like, I'm growing a whole human. And I am like, like, it's just like, so, it was like such a powerful experience for me of not only just like, every day. It wasn't about like, do I look fat or what? That wasn't a
No.
part of it. I was like, I'm growing a bone today. Like I grew a skull. Like that was just like mind blown.
Yeah.
And the same thing with delivery. I decided to have birth outside of a hospital, so I did it at a,
Mhm.
just with a midwife,
Mhm.
and it was like, "Well, Kelsey, a lot of people have difficult births," and it's like, this is my experience. That is not to negate anyone else's or the difficulty if you feel, pregnancy has been difficult on your body or really challenging, or the postpartum depression, like, that is also real. My this is I share my experience as just that. It's just my
That's right.
own, like.
We have got to stop doing this as women. It's unbelievable because both things get to be true. You get to have had the most incredible experience with being pregnant and love every second of it, and even loved the whole entire birth process and everything that comes with it. You get to love that, and the person across the street from you gets to hate it. And guess what? Both are true.
Both are true
Yours
because we're
isn't
living
saying
our
that hers
truth.
isn't. That's right, and nothing actually changes for women if we try to silence the woman who has a beautiful experience, and I have received, I it's been interesting in the midlife space, a lot of the midlife influencers, I've received some very interesting comments from the women and the leaders in that space, right? Because it's like, well, that's not the case for most women. I'm like, I'm not saying it is, but I am allowed to speak my experience. So it is fascinating how we continue to do this to one another, and I think it causes a lot more harm than good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I
Mhm.
wanted to close with just an opportunity to, your work is for women who are done hiding and are done apologizing for their existence. What's one truth you wish every woman would finally believe about herself?
That every single thing that she needs to feel absolutely phenomenal in her life, it already exists inside of her. She doesn't have to buy it or pay for it somewhere else. It's already in her. She was built and designed perfectly.
Ain't that the truth? I can't. I did wanna say too, we're gonna link, like, where to find you in the show notes and everything, but I found you on social media and have changed my, algorithms and social media by following, people like you who are putting this message out, and I've said this before in the podcast, but I can't employ people enough to really look at what you are consuming on a daily basis and how it is impacting the way that you think, the way that you talk, the way you think conversations should go, and how you're framing how you think about yourself. So definitely follow you on social media, as I have to say that. Are there other places that my listeners should go and look for you?
If you're wanting longer form content, I would say go to YouTube and listen in. I also, you can listen to it on podcast platforms as well. But if you want to see a little bit, it's called Things Your Mother Never Told You, which is my podcast. And I think it allows people to hear the longer format and really my philosophy on more and more of these things.
Yeah, that's 100% true, and I
And of course, my
already
book.
listen, but
But yes.
I can't get enough because it's like it's building all of this courage almost to
Yeah.
live the life you know that you were meant to step into your power, and it takes courage, and it doesn't happen overnight, so, like, I know a lot of people are
No.
gonna come into this podcast and be like, "Well, I listened, so I should probably be ready for the world now." No, there are still moments where, like, I have have not had the courage to speak up in many ways, and the next time I didn't do that.
That's
Yeah,
right.
because then you go like, "That felt worse than
Yes.
any, like, random person that now thinks that I, am uncomfortable." It felt
You're
worse to do.
exactly right.
Mhm.
Yes, you're exactly right.
And so with YouTube, another place.
I would say my website is amandahanson.com.
Thank you so much for the gifts that you're offering women in just this world because this is 100% what you were meant to do, and you are
Mhm.
doing big, amazing things. So, like, I personally just can't thank you enough for being such a pillar in the space and for giving us someone to look look forward to in this life and say, like, this, it doesn't have to be this doom and gloom thing that, we're writing our own stories and look like you're living it. So, just thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting this conversation, Kelsey, and I fully receive your beautiful words.